Prior to the murders of Maggie and Paul, did you ever hear Alec express any distrust of SLED?
No, sir.
Can you tell the jury what your observations were of his relationship with the law enforcement community?
I thought it was very good. I mean, he interacted with them regularly, as most civil lawyers do, and then with his side gig as, solicitor, he obviously had interaction with them as well.
Do you remember coming to find out that Alec had installed blue lights in the private vehicle?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury roughly how long ago that was?
I can't tell you precisely. I can tell you it wasn't the vehicle that's been seized. He got that vehicle in the end of December before the murders occurred in June, so he'd had that vehicle about 6 months roughly, and it was on the vehicle that was prior to that, and it was a Suburban as well. I don't remember when in that chain that they were actually installed, but it was some time.
Do you have some property around in this area?
I do.
And are you a hunter and an outdoorsman and shooter?
I am.
All right. Do you ever shoot hogs and other nuisance creatures?
A bunch of them.
And when you're riding around looking for hogs, what can you do that in the daytime?
Yes.
And is it not uncommon to see hogs during the daytime?
I shot 2 weeks ago. I shot 5
During the daytime?
during the day, 4:30. They come out, all different times, but the more pressure you put on them, the more nocturnal they'll become, but they eat all the time, and they root, and the rooting's what the real problem is. They root up your roads and fields and everything else.
Have you ever known the defendant? You've known the defendant for how long?
34 years.
You were aware the defendant and his family had a number of long guns, rifles, and shotguns?
Yes.
Have you ever known him to talk much about target shooting a pistol?
No, sir.
Do you know what Paul's weapon of choice was when shooting hogs?
Shooting.
Hogs.
The 300 blackouts were bought for hog hunting. I assume Paul would have shot him with anything he had, but that's what the 300 blackouts were bought for.
Did you have any conversations with the defendant when he was purchasing the original 2 blackouts as it relates to hog hunting?
I did. I'm not a big 300 blackout fan, and I told him that, and he bought them anyway, and I think his cousin actually put them together, who was a game warden.
In the time after the murders, did you have a number of conversations with the defendant about his activities that night?
I did. I had that night and then subsequent days.
And did you go over to those in fairly some sort of detail?
Yes, sir. At times, sometimes it wasn't detailed. It would just be checking on him to see how he was doing and to see, if they'd come up with any leads or where things stood. I mean, everybody was trying to figure this out. I mean, this is one of those lightning strikes in life that just jolts you, and there's no rhyme or reason.
What, if anything, did he say about whether or not he checked Maggie and Paul before he called 911?
As I testified before, my recollection of it was that he testified, or he told me, not testified, but he told me that he went to Maggie and then he went to Paul, rolled Paul over. His phone, I didn't hear the phone the first time he said that. I think that was about the second or third time. But I also wasn't really listening. I was listening to what occurred. Who did this? Why would they have done this? But the second time he went, it was reversed, where he went to Paul and then to Maggie. And like I told you before, I don't know whether that's just a slip, you know, from one to the other or vice versa. But he definitely went, checked on him, then called 911.
When was the first time you heard his admission and claim now that he did go to the kennels around 8:44 p.m.?
Thursday, last
This past
Thursday.
Thursday?
Yeah,
And was he clear prior to that he did not go down there in his conversations with you?
never said anything about that or any reason for it. It just, he'd never been there.